Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some statements that were put out by actress Elizabeth Banks, who just came out with her movie Charlie's Angels, which bombed at the box office last weekend, making just $8 million. She directed it, and she also plays the character of Bosley in the film. Now, she has put out a statement regarding the idea of female-led action films. And basically, her point is that the only reason why the comic book adaptations, such as Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel, have succeeded is because they are based in a male genre. And the reason why her film failed is because it reinforces the stereotype that men do not want to go see actual female-led action films that are not connected to other movies. Again, like the comic book films are, where you had Captain Marvel, which led into Endgame. You had Wonder Woman, which kind of led into Justice League a little bit. But this is, I feel like this is her making excuses for a few reasons. And I'll go over those reasons as we kind of go through this. We'll just work our way through it. So, before I kind of, before I actually say this, I'm going to read the actual quote from Banks specifically about the comic book films. They'll go see a comic book movie with Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel because that's a male genre. Even though those are movies about women, they put them in the context of feeding the larger comic book world. So it's all about, yes, you're watching a Wonder Woman movie, but we're setting up three other characters, or we're setting up Justice League. Now, here's the thing. I would agree with that on Captain Marvel. Specifically, the reason why it made so much money was because it was leading into Endgame. That movie's box office was almost manufactured because of Disney, because of the placement of the film, and because of the tease that, oh, she's going to have this big role in Endgame and stuff like that. So I think that's why a lot of people did go and see that movie, in addition to the fact that Disney may inflate their numbers, which, again, that's neither here nor there. But I would agree on that for Captain Marvel. However, Wonder Woman, I do not, because here's the thing. The DCEU, especially in its early days when Wonder Woman was coming out, before the Justice League debacle, those films were not necessarily, extremely profitable. You look at Man of Steel, I think that came out of the market, even though it was technically just supposed to be a standalone. It wound up starting the whole thing, but I think it came out at a $600 to $700 million, something like that, for worldwide box office. Then you go immediately into Batman v Superman. Now, Batman v Superman was literally supposed to be a setup film for Justice League, and it made about a little over $800 million. I think it made $880 million at the box office. So you look at that film, and then you go to Wonder Woman. Now, Wonder Woman, again, if I remember correctly, I believe that movie made over $750 million. We're not going to count Suicide Squad because that kind of doesn't really feed into a lot of stuff. But for Wonder Woman, it made a good amount of cash. And yes, it was preceding Justice League, but you look at the film that actually was setting up Justice League, and it didn't even break $1 billion. And it had two of the most marketable characters that DC has, with Batman and Superman in the film. That film should have done at least $1 billion, probably 1.5, if it was written better, or if it was presented better, or if Warner Brothers didn't screw it up in the editing room and cut Zack Snyder's film down and make it, not make sense. But that film should have been the one that made a lot of money, based on what she's stating here. That film should have made a lot more money than it did. Wonder Woman made almost as much money as Batman v Superman. It made close to the same amount. It almost broke. I think it almost broke $800 million. Again, I'll double check the numbers, but I'm fairly certain that's what it is. And actually, looking at it, Wonder Woman made only $50 million less than Batman v Superman. It made $821 million worldwide. Batman v Superman made $872. So you're only looking at a $50 million difference, and Wonder Woman was considered a second-tier character in terms of putting her in films, even though she's extremely big in the DC universe in the comics. So you're telling me that the film that has the bigger stars, that should have made a buttload more money based on what you're telling me, the reason why people didn't there's some reason why people didn't go see that, but they went to go see Wonder Woman, and I'll tell you why. Because Wonder Woman was a well directed and well written film. Gal Gadot plays the character very well. I like her portrayal. I think she's honestly a lot less abrasive than a lot of people, including Elizabeth Banks, when it comes to this stuff. She's actually excited to play this character. She likes being in these films and in this universe. That's why that film is getting a sequel. That's why she's coming back. That's why she came back for Justice League. And I think that and that's why she's doing Wonder Woman 1984, which comes out next year. But I think that she is not an abrasive person. She seems like she's a really fun and nice human being, as opposed to somebody like Brie Larson, who seems like a heartless bitch, or somebody like Elizabeth Banks, that seems like she likes to virtue signal too much. She's somebody that seems like she has fun with the role. She likes playing the part. She's a good actress, and the movies that she was in were written very well. So I don't see the comparison there. And then you can also look at some other things. You can look at older films. You can look at stuff like Aliens, where you had male leads in that movie. You had Michael Biehn as Hicks, but Sigourney Weaver is the center point of that film. The plot revolves around her. She's the one that kind of bails everybody out. She has the big action scene at the end. It's not Michael Biehn there, mowing down aliens, and then she's just kind of sitting back there with Newt all like huddled up. No, she has a machine gun, or she has a plasma rifle and a flamethrower, and she's killing everything that she can, and she's trying to save this little girl. That's the action movie. You look at Terminator 1. Again, Linda Hamilton is kind of the center point of that movie, even though I think Michael Biehn has some pretty good action scenes in it. It's mostly Arnold Schwarzenegger, to be honest. But there have been movies that have been made with that idea, and yeah, okay. Action movies in general are kind of a male genre thing. It's mainly directed at men. I'm not going to lie about that, because I've talked about demographics on here. But I don't think the reason why female-centric action movies, some of them make money and some of them don't, I don't think that necessarily relies exclusively on franchise. I think that relies a lot on story. And I think that a lot of people panned the Charlie's Angels reboot because they didn't like the writing. Even in the trailer, they have the whole, feminism angle and stuff like that at the very beginning, where they say, women can do anything, or women can't do anything, or whatever. They have that scene at the beginning. I did a breakdown of that before, but to go out on a limb here, I feel like this is just her trying to shift the blame away from the fact that she made a movie that did not make money. And look, there's been a lot of people in Hollywood that have made movies that don't make money. There's a lot of films that flop. It's not, look at Terminator Dark Fate last month. That movie's going to lose a fuck ton of money. And it's probably going to negatively affect Tim Miller's career moving forward to some extent. Just from the PR stuff, and then also from all the stuff that's coming out about the clashes behind the scenes with him and Cameron. But ultimately he's probably going to make more movies, and hopefully he makes good films. I don't look, unless it's Ryan Johnson, I don't look at a director and say, I hope you make a bad film. I honestly, I want directors to make good films, even if they have a history of making shitty films. I want Uwe Boll to make a good movie. It would make me happy to see him make a good movie. But chances of it happening are probably very slim. But I don't hate Elizabeth Banks for making a bad film. What I don't like is that when you shift the blame away from yourself. If you want to come out and say, look, I made the film as best as I could, people didn't like it, I'm sorry you didn't like it, I'm going to try and do better the next time around. That's what you have to say to people to give them confidence in you. And I think that's what the studio people want to hear, too. They don't want to hear this whole shifting the blame thing. Like, oh, well, the only reason it didn't succeed is because, men don't like female-centric movies and the action movies. And the only reason they do like them sometimes when they make money is because they're part of a franchise and because they lead into other things, and there's other things in the movie for them to concentrate on besides the lead character. And like I said, I agree with that to an extent with Captain Marvel. I do not agree with it with Wonder Woman. I do not agree with it with some other films. Another one that I saw brought up in the article was Rogue One. Now, Felicity Jones in that film plays the Jyn Erso character, which really she's just a walking plot MacGuffin. But the point is, she's a very plain character. She's really not the best character, and she's really like maybe like the fourth or fifth best character in the actual movie. I like Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera. I like I forget who plays the droid in that film, but the droid is really good. The guy that plays Cassian Andor is very good. I like him. The blind monk is really good. I like him. I like a lot of this. Kind of, I guess you'd call them the side characters, even though Cassian Andor is kind of a co-star type of thing with Felicity Jones. But that movie had a lot more going for it than just Felicity Jones. It's not like you're signing a huge name to that deal. It's just okay, she's the central plot point because of reasons. Actually, even Mads Mikkelsen is better in that movie than Felicity Jones, and he's only in it for about 10 minutes, maybe. But again, I think that movie succeeded because of those surrounding characters, and partially because of the Star Wars brand. But I mean, here's the thing though: is that movie wasn't leading into anything. It's like, okay, now we find out why this happened. It does lead into A New Hope, but that's a movie that came out in 1977. So there's a lot of stuff going on there that I don't think necessarily supports with what Elizabeth Banks is saying. And like I said, I feel like this is her trying to shift the blame away from or shift the attention away from the fact that her film did not make money. And I think she's going to reinforce this in the future because that's just kind of the person that she is. She's going to keep harping on this because she can't accept the fact that she made a film that did not make money. And again, there have been lots of really good films that haven't made money. Blade Runner was a complete flop when it came out. Now it's considered a cinematic masterpiece. That's partially to do with the advertising department, but the point still stands. But there's plenty of movies. Now, I'm not saying that the Charlie's Angels reboot is a good movie. I haven't seen it. I've only seen the trailer. The trailer did not give me much confidence that it was going to be a good film. But the thing is that I feel like these people when they do this, when Hollywood people do this, when they start going to the whole argument of like the blame game, it's for vindication. When they make these movies, they want them to make money because they want the vindication. It's almost like when you have a scientific study and the results come back and they're not what you want. So you say, oh, well, we'll do another study and we'll see if it works that time. It feels a lot like that where you did a study and the results came back and they weren't the results you wanted. So you're going to try and do a study again, or you're trying to disprove the results. And look, this entertainment is not a scientific thing. Everybody has different tastes, and it depends on when you hit it at the right time. I think that personally, Charlie's Angels was not a reboot that anybody was really looking for. It wasn't anything that people really wanted. It wasn't advertised very well. I will say that right now. A lot of people I know didn't even realize that movie had come out. And it was opening on a weekend where it had kind of stiff competition from Ford v Ferrari. So there's I feel like the release date was bad, the advertising was bad, the movie was probably lukewarm at best. So that just compounded into what eventually became a flop. And again, Elizabeth Banks does not have a lot of directorial credits to her name. I know she did movie 43, or at least a few segments in it, even though I find that movie kind of funny in a horrible way. There's not much there. I think she has maybe one or two other director credits to her name, but I don't necessarily know what they are. The only one that I do remember is movie 43. But again, this is kind of one of those things where I think that the argument she's making is to cover up for herself. I don't think the argument is meant to actually have a legitimate point to it. Even though, again, you can point to examples like Captain Marvel where that may have necessarily been the case. I don't think you can lump all of those films into that one little encampment and say that they're all under the same umbrella, because I think Wonder Woman succeeded for different reasons than why Captain Marvel succeeded. I think it succeeded for very different reasons. But that's just me. I want to know what you guys think. Do you agree with Elizabeth Banks? Do you think that the only reason why these female superhero films succeed is because they're in a male-centric market, because they're setting up other films, because the male audience insists on watching them for those reasons, or do you think she's full of shit? I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments. Again, post those down there. I'd like to know what you're thinking. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?